Welcome to Blue Monday. On a Blue Monday after Everton have picked up a really good point on the road. I'm going to speak to Rodger Armstrong about his thoughts on the game, about that in a minute. Objectively, a really good point. Covered this a lot over the weekend. It was a tough watch, but Rog, it was ultimately a good and I'm going to say valuable point.
Well, of course it was. I mean, you looked at that run of fixtures and the fact that we're unbeaten in 2 games against the top 4, although one of them we didn't play, of course. Yeah, of course. Look, I'm being facetious. It's a very valuable point, and I don't quite know what's become of us or what's even become of me because I have to say my instant reaction was it's a really good point, and I don't really care how we got it, and that's what we've become. I'm used to us going to, under Moyes, this sort of knife to a gunfight mentality, which we hated, and going to places like Anfield, digging in and getting a hard-earned draw. I mean, I think Arsenal were off it, weren't they? They weren't performing at their best, and for Mykolenko to have Saka in his pocket, something's gone wrong because Mykolenko hasn't become a world beater overnight. He performed better than he has done most of the season. Saka had an off day. Most of Arsenal really just seemed to struggle and labour a little. You felt that if they got one, they might get 3 or 4. But I really don't care how we got the point, and that really pisses me off a bit because the standards are so low. But frankly, we need it. Of course, Wolves Ipswich being a draw would have been helpful. One of them winning not helpful, and in fact, Ipswich winning and then Wolves sacking their manager and getting Vitor Pereira, who we so nearly got if there hadn't been the hot walk protest demanding Super Frank Lampard. Jesus, cast your minds back to that because the fans know best, don't we? Yeah, I mean, Wolves might be able to turn things around under him. And then, of course, Palace had an impressive win at Brighton. I never really saw them involved in a sort of relegation battle. So, yeah, it's a good point. How we got it, let's just draw a line under it. Pickford's immense. I heard you and Dave say, and we've said it before, we would not be a Premier League team without Jordan Pickford. And I do hope that Spurs or United don't come looking for him in January because both of them need a goalkeeper, and he improves them both immeasurably. So, yes, it was a good, very important point. And we move on to Chelsea, which I think will represent more of a challenge, both because Chelsea, I think, are a better team, and secondly, because the game is at Goodison, where we tend to perform rather poorly, albeit accepting the Wolves 4-0 aberration.
Yeah, I'm still not over the 6-0 away at Chelsea last season either. So I'm dreading seeing Cole Palmer against our gang of crabs at the weekend. But we'll come on to that soon. Just to put that point into context then. So we've actually got 11 points away at Arsenal since 1988. So, I mean, that was one of just 11 points in getting on for 30 years. Getting on for 40 years. It's incredible. It's really, Arsenal away is not a good place for us to go. So I think, you've got to put it in that context as well, that it's a point against and a ground. But, we talk about expected results, which we don't like to talk about really, but we do have expected results, and that isn't one of them. So that is a bonus point. I think my issue was, and I think I said this to Rob yesterday on the Kickabout, those results are really good when they punctuate results that you expect. So we should be on more than 15 points now. I've no doubt about that. I know we're not the best team in the league, but I think we're better than a point a game, although that's Dyche's sort of average, isn't it? That's when these points, I mean, it's a good point. Can't take that away from us, but it should be a sort of a nice to have that on top of the ones that we've, the other points we've picked up. I just don't think we've picked up enough points. And that essentially comes down to the fact that we can't turn these draws into wins. Dyche is very good at getting teams to draw games. So he's very good at sort of keeping those shutouts in certain games that we then draw. And to keep yourself in this league, that's pretty much all you've got to do. Just don't get beat too often. Pick up a load of draws and you'll stay up, which I think is what we did last season during that really barren run where we didn't win for 13, 14 games. We drew a lot of those games, and that was ultimately what sort of pushed us up the league. The issue we've got is we can't turn them into wins. And again, yesterday it was another complete no-show from the front players. We had 2 shots, none on target. And one of them was that Decore shot, which I still don't know how he never managed to get the shot away. Even if he swings his left foot at it, you've got to test the keeper when you're in that much space. Dwight McNeil did the same about United. Did the same at United early on in that game, and those 2 goals, it could change the whole complex of the game. Arsenal may have come out swinging a bit more if they'd have gone 1-0 down. We don't know, but we may have hung on. Same at United. And for me, it's just a massive worry now, because we are definitely going into games thinking if we concede, we've got no chance. Really, that's how I feel about it. Anyway, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's true, because I think I looked at the stats, and in the second half, our XG was 0.00.
We're going to get minus XG soon, aren't we? We're going to be the first team to get minus XG, I reckon.
Yeah. Decore, I have no idea why he waited and waited and waited. He just needed to hit it, and it was like he was just waiting for the defender to come across him. It's really, really poor. But you've got to be able to create a little bit more. It's been the problem for a long, long time in terms of scoring goals and Dyche's negative goal difference and his lack of. There's just, I wonder who does the coaching. We've said this so often, haven't we? And I wonder where that creative spark might come from, because the resources haven't changed. It's Calvert-Lewin and McNeil. Rodger might give a different option, and Undai can give us slightly different options. But the style of play and the formation has pretty much been the same throughout, and he hasn't found a way of a pattern of play where we can actually build an attack, whether it's passing through the lines rather than just lumping it forward for a flick on. And that's meat and drink. We've said all along it's pace that we lack, and all those other teams that are able to go away from home and nick something on the counter, you need pace to do that, and we have no pace and very, very little belief. I was even more amazed by our point when I heard the pre-match press conference. I think I shared this clip with you, and I think Julia asked him a very good question. What do you do to prepare for a game like Arsenal? Arsenal have got special skills. They're good at corners. Very good wingers. What do you do? What sort of special preparation do you put in? And his answer was basically nothing. That's nothing to do with me. I leave a pre-match prep is very much the domain of Woney and Stoney. And I thought, well, what? Sorry, mate. You're the manager. I thought that was an extraordinary admission from him. Isn't it? Just extraordinary. So setting up. We train all week. We practice routines. Whatever we practice, I've no idea. What do we practice? Corners? Do we practice the odd set piece? What do we actually practice? And then specifics for the opponents in question. Arsenal, a good example with a very obvious number of threats that you need to be prepared for. We just leave that to Woney and Stoney. God above, it's desperate. So it's about making the best of your resources, and he isn't making the best of the resources. I think the players take a lot of credit for the amount of concentration that you need. I've been to the Emirates lots and lots of times and witnessed those defeats, and I've been to Highbury before that. I did see the Wayne Clark goal back in the day, 1987, when we won the league. That's my only claim to fame of an Arsenal away fixture. But it's a horrible place. It is a bit of a library, yes, but you need to really concentrate. And I think the players, particularly the defenders and Mangala and Gay, middle of midfield, deserve an awful lot of credit for not conceding, for keeping that going all the way to the bitter end, because I wasn't happy till the final whistle. Who was? Yeah. We were expecting a goal to come in the 80th, the 85th, even 90 plus 4, So I give the players a good deal of credit for that. And I think you'd give the manager a little bit more if you could see other styles of play and a bit more optimism in our football in other games. But this was an outlier. It's an outlier when we've gone to Old Trafford and shipped 4, and we've gone to Spurs and shipped 4. So it's an outlier, a little bit like the Wolves' performance is an outlier. When we've struggled at home against Newcastle and Fulham and thrown away, thrown a 2-goal lead away against Bournemouth, lost at home to Brighton. If there was actually some evidence of consistently improving style of play that was vaguely entertaining, then I'd give the manager a little more credit. That was backs to the wall, and maybe what were the odds? 12 to 1, so something like that. So 1 in 10, 11 times we got a draw playing like that. It's not really it's not a strategy, is it, for the long term?
No, not at all. And it's too much to ask of the players. So if you've got a solid defensive unit, I think that's 4 clean sheets in 5. There's all sorts of caveats to that. West Ham not being asked for 75 minutes, Brentford being down to 10 men. But fact is, it's 4 clean sheets in 5. Yep. So you've got a defensive unit that's statistically very solid there. You can't keep asking them to do that. It's going to be backs to the wall potentially against Chelsea again, backs to the wall against Man City, and it's too much each week. As you say, the concentration levels, it's difficult as a defensive unit to keep that level of concentration for the whole game. They did really well yesterday, I think, particularly dealing with Arsenal's set pieces, which have become a big thing for Arsenal this season. Scored a lot of goals from set pieces. Pickford dealt with them well. The defence dealt with them well. You could see they were confident in each other. And that was, whether that's testament to what they did on the training ground in the week, because obviously everyone knows this is a threat from Arsenal, so maybe they practiced that, dealt with that well. That's brilliant. But it's not sustainable. We can't keep asking the players to do that every week while the front 3 or 4 just stroll about on their own.
Absolutely.
We talk a lot of that Calvert-Lewin being isolated, which he is. But in that position, surely, and this is where the players have got to take some responsibility, he says to say, Decore, get right next to me, pulls a winger in, I'm going to go for this next flick on, get behind me. There's none of that. There's no. There's no. They do not play as a team. They don't play as a unit, that front section. And that's the real problem for us, because when Decore got put through, he was on his own. Where were people streaming into the box? Because he could have cut that across. Where were our attackers? There was no one. And
there's no legs. There's no legs. No one to keep up with him.
No. It's a massive deficiency.
It was the first minute of the game, wasn't it? It was very early on in the game. So
yeah, it was first 5, yeah. So, people should have been busting a gut to get in the box, and that's got to come down to the coaching, really. And you just think that's a pretty easy fix. You've got players who surely are willing to get into the box and score goals, but for some reason, they're not doing it. I think the last time we did that, I think we went 1-0 up at Palace a season or 2 ago. Might have been the first when Dyson just joined. And I think Mikalenko scored a header, but there was about 4 players burst into the box early on.
Yeah.
Totally overloaded. Yeah, and we scored. And I don't think we've done that since. It's just, it's dead strange to me. And I don't understand it, because it does seem like a relatively straightforward fix to, at least alleviate the pressure on the defence. As a defensive coach, surely you can see that you're putting a lot of pressure on your defenders and midfielders. But yeah, that's just where I am with it, and it does baffle me. But
it's like we're playing a false 9, but with an actual number 9 who's physically there but actually doing nothing. There's no point having him if no one's going to support him and he can't hold the ball up, and it's just going to be lumped forward for a flick on. There's no point. There's no point in having a Calvert-Lewin type player or even a Rodger type player, because nothing's going to come out of it as a result if nobody's chasing the flick-ons, and if the ball's not being played into their feet and they're not going to try and turn and win a free kick and then move us up the pitch. It's false 9 kind of just in a different, just in the most ridiculous way, that you've got a player. It's like having a goalkeeper and saying you're not allowed to use your hands.
Yeah.
What's Calvert-Lewin supposed to do? What can he do with no support, no runners, and no decent passes? What is he supposed to contribute to that team, or anyone who plays in the central striking role? Don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we've been a bit of a strikers' graveyard for a long time, but it just really feels like there's no emphasis placed on even trying to attack. As you say, Wolves was a massive outlier in all our results this season, but that did come from 2 own goals and then being absolutely wretched. I mean, Calvert-Lewin probably could have scored those 2 goals anyway.
Yeah,
but Wolves were just wretched, weren't they? And we can't be relying on teams to be that bad. But we'll move on to possibly better news now. So depending on what journo's corner you're in, the deal has or hasn't been approved quite yet. But the Friedkin Group are coming on board anyway. The takeover of the club should be happening anytime soon, as far as I know. I'm just checking here. Yeah, Some journalists have said it's been approved. Some have said not yet. Clearly, the club have briefed, and some have gone early. I think that's safe to say. But for the team's deficiencies, there could be some light on the horizon. Maybe we'll get some funds to spend in January. What do you think of the Friedkin Group come in? When they come in, what's the sort of first thing you think they need to do?
First thing they need to do. It's interesting. I listened to an interview with a guy from Roma Press about how the Friedkins have operated there. And one of the things I was encouraged by was that they don't say anything. And they don't leak any news. They don't have any favoured sources, journalists or the like. They might make a statement, but they don't say anything. And they engage this consultant. Is it Redexo? What are they called? I think they're called Redexo. Dave Wycherley would know this. A US-based football consultancy that they engaged when they went to Roma to kind of manage almost the footballing operations and help them find coaches, directors of football, etc. So they don't say a great deal, and I think that's a good thing because you don't want to make too many promises. They've had a funny time at Roma. Of course, they won a trophy and they won the Europa Conference League, which broke, I think, a 16, 17-year run without a trophy for Roma. So that got them a lot of credit in the bank. And then they've been a little bit slapdash with managerial appointments. Are they on their third this season? Maybe even their fourth, but it's Ranieri and he's quite old. So what do I think they need to do? I'd like to think they've already had a jolly good rummage through the organisation and they can see where the problems lie. There's a brand new stadium that they'll be able to monetize. You'd like to think. Whether we're going to get a new 200 million stadium sponsor on day one, I'm a little more dubious about. But I think they have to rip up the footballing operations, basically, Les. That's what they have to do, in my opinion. Yeah. We've talked about it before into the order in which you do things. I think in a perfect world, people may think I've gone slightly mad with the grog, but I think in a perfect world, you lose Thelwell before you lose Dyche. Because Dyche will tick it over and whatever. I think you want a director of football, a new director of football with a vision, who's going to appoint a manager, a coach, if you will, who can implement the style of football that they see as appropriate for the football club. From what you hear, a number of very different sources, largely fan media based, people seem to think Dyche's days are well and truly numbered, and he'll be the first one to go, and maybe Thelwell kept on until the end of the season. That isn't what I would do if I were advising them. I'd be getting a brand new director of football in place and finding a new coach, and I don't see any reason why you can't do that pretty swiftly, so that perhaps you can get a couple of key signings in the January window for at least to put in place the beginnings of a philosophy, the beginnings of a style of play. That's what I'd like to see. Yeah. We need points, obviously, and we need to still keep one eye on teams below us. Arguably, that maybe there's only one place up. If we say Wolves, Southampton, or two from Wolves, Southampton, and Ipswich will probably go. Then maybe we're fighting with the other one of those and Leicester to stay up, as I think we said last week. But I'd like to see them take just rip up the footballing operations and start again, because it's not successful. It's not working. There's no evidence of a style of play coming through the ranks or connecting to the first team. Some of the younger age groups may well be performing in a way, but none of that talent's coming through. None of that talent's anywhere near the first team. Roman Dixon, he's one game at Spurs and disappears off the face of the earth. We signed Brozier. And only now he's getting minutes on the pitch. There's been nobody, and Chimiti obviously had that foot fracture. So there's been nobody that we could bring in from our under-21s or academy to even get 10 minutes on the pitch. Daddy Cadamarteri, Wayne Rooney style. From back in the bloody day. So I think you've got to rip up the footballing operation and start again. And let them just get on with it. I hope they don't start pandering to the big club history bullshit. Counts for nothing. We got to build a new club now, brand new stadium, new club, new league, And I think there's a 5 to 10 year plan that sees us approaching the top half and pushing for Europe. But that's a long way away because these teams, this division is getting harder and getting better. I don't accept that it's a worse division. There may be really poor bottom 3 or 4 teams, but the Brentfords, the Brightons, the Nottingham Forests are progressing. And you've got Newcastle, and you've got Villa, and you've got City and United and Tottenham and Chelsea and Arsenal. And that's 10 teams before you've even, Brentford, Bournemouth. Look at Bournemouth. And what I did discover listening to that Roma guy was the bloody director of football they brought in. I think he's called João Pinto. They brought him in from Porto, I think, into Roma. He's now the director of football at Bournemouth. There you go. Little old Bournemouth. Yes, 2 miles up the road there. Little old Bournemouth with Iraola. Yeah, he's the director of football there.
Right, that is really interesting. Didn't know that. Yeah.
So the clubs around us, who's our peer group? And I think we've been deluded as to who our peer group is. And our peer group is, Bournemouth, Brighton, Brentford, Nottingham Forest. Those are the clubs with ambition, and those are the clubs we need to be getting ahead of before we even focus on the big boys.
Well, this is it, isn't it? It's interesting you say we need to sort of shake this big club identity crisis that we've got, because they aren't the clubs like Spurs, even United, even though they're last at the minute. Liverpool, Arsenal, we're not going to be competing with them for a long time. A long time, if ever. It is going to need a big plan. Interesting about Thelwell as well. I think a lot of people sort of see him as the continuity we need, because he's the director of football. He's been very hit and miss. He's made some good signings. He's made some shockers. But I think because it's kind of accepted that Dyche is going to go at the end of the season anyway, if not before, it's sort of looked at Thelwell. We need to keep him for some stability. But I agree with you. I think he should be the first one to go, really, and then get someone in who can do a better job and, implement something across the football club and not just the first team. And as you say, Dyche will keep this ticking over. We're on course for a point a game. That keeps you up. That's kind of what Dyche does. And I think you're right. I think he will be the sort of continuity to the end of the season if we don't go wholesale changes straight away. And I think it probably would look to replace Thelwell early on. Obviously, get a proper CEO and a proper board structure and the top of the club set up correctly first, and then look at that. I think a lot has been made of the fact that it's been 3 managers this season for Roma. They've sort of fallen apart a little bit, or after being, as you say, winning that first trophy, consistent 6th place finishes for years, it seems. That carried on when Friedkin took over. I'm hoping that they've kind of learned lessons from that Roma experience, just in the fact that bringing Jose Mourinho in, won them the trophy, kept the continuity of finishing in the European spots, but he does leave chaos when he goes. And if your club isn't set up to deal with that chaos, then it can be really damaging. And I think that's what's happened to them. There was no continuity plan after Mourinho. When he went, it's completely fallen apart. I think they've had the worst start now. I think it's 8. I think they've lost 8 in 16. Yeah. I think it's the worst start in 50 years or something like that. So hopefully, I know I've spoken on other podcasts about, I'll get Mourinho in, it'd be great. It could be glorious chaos. It wouldn't be the right thing at all. And you'd like to think that they've learned lessons from what's happened at Roma about how to make a managerial appointment, how to make the right one, and how to have a continuity plan if things don't go right or that manager goes. And as you say, I think that comes from the director of football down, doesn't it? It's his job then, if he's allowed to do it properly. This is what Marcel Brands should have done. And if he hadn't been allowed to do it, he should have left. That's Absolutely my big issue. That's my big issue with him. People say, we had one hand tied behind his back. In that case, he should have said, I'm leaving then. He should have bailed. But he took the money and he took sort of an easy route. So hopefully we'll get someone in who can do the job, who's allowed to do the job. And I think you're right. That would be the first change I'd make as well. Because the
guy's name,
sets the club up, doesn't it?
Yeah. The guy's name is Tiago Pinto. That's what I was looking at on my phone. I wasn't ignoring you.
No, right.
Tiago Pinto is the director of football, managing director of professional football at Bournemouth. And he also, I appreciated this, but the Bournemouth owner He'll also be the president of football operations at the 3 other clubs that Bill Foley, the owner of Bournemouth, owns. And he owns Lorient, Hibs in Scotland. Didn't know that.
Oh,
Did you know
I
that?
didn't know that
That's
either.
really weird. And
Hibs,
Auckland in New Zealand. Yeah, Hibs are shit.
Hibs
I mean,
swindled
Hibs are
Bournemouth.
bottom of the league. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, so that's him. And he obviously took over from Richard Hughes, who went to the Red Shite. Yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
God, it's quite the
So
web, that, isn't it? I never
these
realised.
other clubs have got, these little clubs have got proper professional, knowledgeable people. I think
Yeah,
my reservation or concern with the Friedkin Group is clearly they have money and clearly they're astute commercial people, and that's good because Mashiri had money but was not astute commercially at all.
yeah,
Is English football and Italian football different, very different, and I hope they've learned some lessons from operating at Roma, but it's a very different market and a very different league. And also, the pressure at Roma, I mean, fan base is huge there, and a huge weight of expectation on that. The capital city's team carries the name of the capital city. Does that make them better or better equipped to deal with the pressure from our fan base? Different, isn't it?
yeah. It is when you put it like that. Yeah,
It is different, and Roma, Lazio, Everton, Liverpool is it's a different dynamic, and
yeah,
I think there's so many. This league is so much more competitive, as we've just said. 10 or 12 decent teams, really, really decent teams up there. If you look at who Bournemouth have beaten this season, Nottingham Forest have beaten this season,
yeah,
Brighton have beaten this season. That top 4 is wide open. So hopefully they'll be decisive. Hopefully they will have a plan, and hopefully they'll be able to bring someone in who can give us a team and a style of play that we can really be proud of, because
yeah.
we're sort of scraping around for the odd light in the gloom, aren't we, at the moment?
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had that, isn't it? So, but I think to that end as well, it's gonna take a resetting of expectations on the fans' part as well, isn't it? We need to, I don't know, maybe be more patient. Although we have been patient and we've sort of lowered our expectations to where the bar is now so low. Like people are happy, or certain people are happy with 15 points after those 15 games. But I think as an overall fan base, we need to probably take a step back, like you said, and forget this big club thing, forget this history, forget the 80s. Don't completely forget it. It was great, it happened, but let's not keep going to that well. Let's not keep talking about Peter Reid, Paul Bracewell, Neville Southall. There's a time and a place to talk about them, but let's not keep going back there and keep sort of reveling in those glory days. We need to really break away from that, don't we? I think, and reset and sort of say, right, this is something else going forward now. And we've got a really big opportunity to do it with the new owners, new stadium, half the squad's getting off, manager, director of football, potentially. It could be really tricky to get all that right in one go, but that could be the situation we're in. And that's kind of what the Friedkins need to get right straight away. So there's a lot of moving parts in all of this, of which the fans are one. Do you think we need to take a step back collectively and sort of how would you approach that? How would you change your mindset to sort of think about the club going forward?
I think the change of stadium is huge. I really do, because so much of the history of the football club is tied up with matchday rituals, Goodison Park,
Yeah.
the whole sense of the atmosphere, Bear Pit atmosphere, whatever, Goodison Road, 5 steps across the road to the Winslow, and the Gladys Street Park End, the different stands, the different atmospheres, the different sort of I suppose moods that the ground can have, and under the lights and this, that, and the other. I mean, we really are starting afresh, and I think this whole, how will you get your seat, and will I sit next to the same people as I was sitting next to, and where will the noise be, where will the old Dars sit, it's just, I think it's so difficult to predict how that will go, because everything will change about the football club by going to the new stadium, and of course there'll be a an enjoyment factor because it'll be plusher and there'll be more to do and there'll food and drink outlets and different atmosphere and positivity. Of course, that's how it will start. But we shouldn't forget that other clubs, Southampton, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, Derby County, have had brand new shiny stadiums and didn't really do them. It wasn't a solution in itself.
No.
But it's an opportunity to press reset with new owners, to press reset with a whole new bunch of players. As you say, so many people are out of contract. But I don't know how the fans do it, because the fans are, as a fan base, we are stuck in the past, because that's, oh, what's the greatest game? Oh, it was Bayern Munich. I mean, really, for God's sake, stop it. But I'm just as guilty as the next man. I would say it was Spurs in 1995 Cup semi-final at Ellen Road.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
But we've all got these memories, but they're so long ago. So long ago, and we've become almost, I suppose, the champions of masochism, the fan base. I just don't. I can't get over them. They're getting up at stupid o'clock to get on a coach to drive to London or Brighton or wherever it is. It's such a commitment, and
it's incredible
to get nothing back. And all those people who travel to come up to Goodison, whether they come from Australia or America or the South Coast, there's got to be. Imagine if you could harness that. Imagine if you could actually provide them with a team that played something approaching beautiful football. The last player you got excited to watch, Lukaku, really?
Yeah, maybe Richarlison.
Oh, maybe Richie, of course. Yeah. But that team was kind of on the wane then. There was still a bit of hope with Lukaku. The early days of Mashiri. But a goal scorer and someone who you could rely on to score goals. Someone who would dig you out of a hole. And so few of those players. We're so desperate for players to love, and Jai had a song after 4 games, I think. This is, it's mad. Yeah. We're so desperate for something to get behind, and hopefully it's all going to boil down to what happens on the pitch, Les, really. But I think that reset of the atmosphere and the fan match day experience that can come with a new stadium, it can go well, or it could be a library. It's a bowl. I know the stands are steep, but where's the?
Yeah,
it's not going to be as tight as Goodison, is it?
No, like you say as well, it's tricky because clubs do tend to have a drop off when they go to a new ground because it is so different. So it's gonna be tricky, but it's a nice position to be in. As you say, I think everyone's going to be sad to leave Goodison, but it does feel now. The whole thing around the club feels so tired, and I think the ground feels part of that, sadly. And I think the fact that if we didn't have this coming, obviously we'd have to make the best of it. But I think the fact that we've got this coming, it's a massive opportunity for the fans and the club to make something new and make something better. So hopefully we will do that. We'll pick up more on the stadium as it gets closer and closer, obviously. But we'll leave it there, Rog, for this week's Monday. Thanks for joining us again. Always appreciate it. Always good to talk. And it was nice to sort of catch up on a game that we were quite happy with the point. So makes a nice change, doesn't it? So
yeah, we didn't lose. This is great. Let's just stop this losing bit and let's hope we can keep that going. You talk about, we'll be up against it at City. I watched City yesterday. They're rubbish. They were rubbish. They haven't got the first idea what they're doing. They've got a lot of the ball, but they don't know what to do with it. So they'll be looking forward to playing us on Boxing Day. Because, we'll come with a sack full of presents and, it's a shame. Chelsea first. Let's see if we can take them by surprise because we do owe them one. After that 6-0 pasting, but maybe Cole Palmer will have a day off. Maybe Maresca will rotate things a bit. Yeah, maybe.
You never know. It will be nice, but yeah, we'll do all the build up to that game during the week. Thanks again, Rog. Thanks to everyone for listening and or watching. That's been this week's Blue Monday. Up the Toffees.